Hello, friends. This is Chandrakant from Akulmach, and today we want to discuss something that I saw in the newspaper today, and it is quite astonished. I was astonished to see this news, which was about Japanese government appointing the Minister for Loneliness. So, to discuss this issue further, let me invite my friend from UK, Mr. Naval Gund.
Good morning, CK. Good morning, everybody. Yes, loneliness. Japan are now, I think, the second country to appoint a minister directly responsible for loneliness. Specifically in Japan, it's to deal with the increase in suicide rates and child poverty. In the UK, we created a loneliness minister a couple of years ago, focusing on similar things, but mainly we have this men in sheds approach here. We have lots of lonely people that were aging because we have an aging community. Now, because of the COVID pandemic, we've got even more issue, not just within the UK, but globally. We've got an issue of loneliness, despite the fact we have huge connectivity in communications and in Zoom opportunity, etc. People do become very lonely. So what's your take on the Japanese making this quite unprecedented move for a very conservative type of country?
Well, Naval, I think it was very strange news for me because coming from India, where there are so many people, even though there could be a lot of lonely people, I am not saying that there is no problem like loneliness in India, but it's sort of not really exposed that much. And I know for sure that the Japanese society is, designed in such a way that they have a lot of lonely people. They don't open up like Indians do. So it was a very surprising piece of information for me. Frankly, I'm not aware until today morning that there is a ministry required to handle the problem of loneliness. So, and you tell me that UK was the first government to appoint a minister for loneliness. So you were the first one. So why don't you tell us what this ministry would do, how it will handle the problems of lonely people, and what are their responsibilities?
Well, in the first instance, recognizing that loneliness is an issue and not just, part of the whole welfare and health system I think, is an important distinction to make. And the reason why, let's look at Japan for the moment. The reason why Japan have moved very quickly in this arena, in that just in October alone last year, there was, I believe, a 70% increase from the previous October in female suicides. Now, let's put that in context, because percentages, a 70% increase could have gone from 1 to 2. But we're talking about 880 female suicides in the month of October last year. And that is a huge amount. And if that's a 70% increase, we're looking at around 500 previously, which again is a huge amount. And if you look at the Japanese culture, lots of these women aren't married and they have to support people on their own living. They don't have permanent jobs, but they may have children. And so when something happens, like COVID, for instance, when jobs disappear or the part-time work starts to disappear because we're under lockdown, etc., then clearly they're hit immediately. And under those circumstances, who do they turn to? Because they're single, they're not married, they don't sometimes have a family culture around them, and they're just destitute because previously they were living hand to mouth, and now there is no hand to mouth. So it's a big issue. And I don't think Japan are unique in this arena. In the UK, we have something similar. I'm not too sure the numbers are as drastic as that. But the point is loneliness. Let's look at loneliness. Do you ever get lonely?
Well, I think I do. I sometimes start missing the old days. I would like to go on the road, join the club, meet my friends, have a drink. Obviously, I sometimes miss all of those things. Fortunately for me, I'm living with my parents. If I was not living with my parents, I would have felt homesick also. So I'm sure it's a big problem.
Well, I think we all get lonely. If we're honest with each other, we do get lonely. And when we get lonely, we do things, you know? We go and read a book, we go for a walk, make a cup of tea, pick up the phone, talk to your friends, talk to your kids, kick the cat, whatever. We all get lonely. Um, the issue is that the majority of people have got connectivity somewhere where the loneliness is a fairly unsubstantial type level. You don't go further into bouts of depression, but some people do, and some people, pop pills because they do have these bouts of depression. But loneliness can take the form of so many things. As you say, you miss the travel. I miss the travel. You know, does that make me lonely? Well, I suppose it does in a way. I look forward to the time when we can travel again and we can, go and meet people in remote parts of the world where you haven't been for a while. Um, but that's not really loneliness. That's just a bit of absence. But the feeling of loneliness is that it's empty. There's nothing there, and COVID has forced us more into that arena. I mean, we've had people here that are the severely at risk, completely isolated right the way through COVID, even when lockdown was opened up in the summer and in the early autumn. Um, they're told you're at risk. You must stay at home. It's that enforcement. Now, if you've got relationships with carers, because some people don't have family, but if you have family and you've got those relationships, then you do make those relationships count. I mean, I can remember when my parents were alive, I would see my parents once a week. I would go physically travel 60 miles each way just to see them. But they were together, they had each other. But then when my father died, my mother was all on her own. So we made it a rota to go so that all of the boys that were living in the UK, her immediate family, were there on a regular basis just to see how she was. And she also had a carer and she lived in a community. So one of these, you bought the premises, you brought your own little rental, your own little flat, but there were communal areas. And on a daily basis, you could go and have a chat, play cards. They play bingo 3 or 4 times a week. And therefore, everyone was getting out of loneliness. It was a community. But we also have the issue of, as I say, men in sheds at the beginning of the program. And there's this thing about and they say about 55-year-olds. 55-year-old men, typically, they were married, may have lost a partner, or haven't been in a long term relationship, and now are approaching retirement or have just been made redundant because their jobs are no longer required, and they become insular. They literally they have no social life. So this program called Men in Sheds meant that they literally came into the shed type arena. We have this huge allotment issue in the UK where people go to allotments. They have a small little parcel of land, and again, that's another community, and that stops loneliness. Doesn't create it, it gets rid of it. But equally, we've got lots of helplines, we've got lots of suicide lines, children helplines, because children can be lonely, despite the fact it would appear that they're in a very loving relationship, but they feel lonely. So this is a big issue, really, and we should be talking about it, should be dealing with it, because there's nothing worse than that child in the playground that stands in the corner that nobody talks to. There's nothing worse than that in a playground, and we've all seen it. As parents, we've all seen it. As teachers, we've seen it too, and we need to stop it because we need to find out what are the issues, because there will be underlying issues why that child is standing in the corner of the playground, not feeling loved and feeling lonely. And as society, we need to do something about it.
So I think the responsibility of the Ministry of Loneliness is to basically create the ecosystem, to create these processes, which is helpline, identifying, or also providing healthcare support to these people who are suffering from the loneliness, and also providing them habitat where they can go and settle down comfortably. So these are the some of these responsibilities of these ministries. Anything else that these ministers would have to do?
Well, as you quite rightly say there, you're actually saying they're actually bringing people in. It's okay to be not okay. I mean, that's a phrase that we hear in well-being all the time. Come and talk about your problem, and if we can deal with the problems early enough in the discussion, then you don't slide down further. There's always a recovery mechanism somewhere, and at the end of the day, these are people that are human beings. And the worst thing you want in an economy is lots of people that are dragging the economy down. So you need to focus on the disadvantaged, people that are struggling, because ultimately they're the ones, if you can bring them back into society, it actually makes society a much healthier place. So there's lots of issues around here. This is not in the old days, many years ago, these will become lepers, unclean, go away. We don't want to hear about you. You're not thinking the way we do. We don't like you, and even to the Middle Ages, these people may have been sort of thrown into the witches arena. Fortunately, we're in a 21st century society and we don't think that way. So this is all, to me, it's very positive news. It's recognizing there's a problem and it's dealing with a problem. The last thing anyone should do, whether it's a government or an entrepreneur, a big business, a small business, or a family, is shuffle the problem under the carpet. That's not the way to deal with it, because guess what? It grows and you keep shuffling it under the carpet. So let's deal with it head on. I wish them all the success. There's certainly, I don't think they're going to be the second or the third government to do this. I think there'll be many other governments that recognize it if they're really feeling about their society. So good luck to them. And, let's hope that we can eradicate this like we eradicate all the other ailments we have, like polio and measles, etc. Because this is almost like it's a virus like COVID. You can't see until you see the effect. And the effect, sadly, in Japan has been suicides, which is the ultimate. So on a positive note, this is a really positive move forward, recognizing a problem. And as they say, isn't it? 90% of the problem is recognized that it exists in the first place.
Absolutely, Neville. I think it was a learning for me and probably most Indians. I'm sure there is a big suicide problem in India also, and the government needs to recognize it and probably create certain programs like Japan has done and UK has done. So I think it was a great learning talking to you today, and we'll catch up again tomorrow on something even more interesting.
Good to see you, CK. Good luck, everybody. Enjoy the day.
Bye-bye.